remember sitting across from Joan. She was 68 years old, recently widowed, and she had over £800,000 in her investment account, more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of her life. Her friends had invited her on an annual cruise, and it cost £3,000, and she was absolutely terrified to say yes. Now, I, as a financial advisor at the time, could have shown her all of the spreadsheets. I could run the projections. I could prove mathematically that she could afford 10 cruises a year and she would still never run out of money. But none of it actually mattered because her fear wasn't about the numbers. If you've ever watched a client self-sabotage, despite your best advice, despite having more than enough money, this video is going to show you exactly why that happens and what you can actually do about it. If you work in financial advice, or perhaps you're an accountant and you're curious about money psychology and financial coaching tools that stop clients from self-sabotaging, this will shift your next financial planning or money conversation. I'm Catherine Morgan, and I spent over 15 years as a qualified financial advisor, and I kept seeing the same patterns over and over again. Clients who knew what to do, but couldn't actually do it. Clients who had money, but couldn't enjoy the money. And I realized that the problem wasn't their lack of financial knowledge, although that definitely had some contribution. It was something much deeper than that, and something that spreadsheets and financial planning just couldn't fix. And so today I'm going to share with you what I've learned about why clients really self-sabotage their wealth and their ability to feel secure with money. And I'm going to give you a framework that you can start using immediately to help them to create breakthroughs. So by the end of this, you'll understand exactly what's happening beneath the surface when clients resist your advice, and you'll have the first tool to do something about it. Now, in the context of how do we make financial decisions, decisions about money are heavily shaped by emotion and unconscious processes. Logic plays a role for sure, but so much of our judgment is automatic. It's feeling driven. The decisions we make around money are driven by that momentum, which means that when we sit down with clients and we give them logical advice on what to do with money, even what we would maybe class as the perfect financial advice, we're speaking to what they are feeling about money. What do they make it mean? What's driving the feeling? Well, what's driving the feeling is their belief system. So what are beliefs? What exactly are beliefs? Well, for most of us, what we have come to understand about beliefs is that a belief isn't just a thought. It's actually a pattern that your brain has created, an association between an action and an emotion. So specifically, your brain links actions to either something that is painful or pleasurable. And once this link has been made, then it runs on auto cue. It runs automatically. So in other words, your clients have learned that this action equals pain, or this action equals something pleasurable. And it will therefore drive their behavior accordingly, regardless of what the spreadsheet says. So when a client knows that they should invest or should be spending or saving differently, but they can't seem to do it, it's because their brain has literally created this association that says this action will lead to something that is painful. And here's the thing, these associations that are created have been formed long, long ago, most of them by the age of 6. They come from observing parents, from things that were said or not said at the dinner table, from experiences that we might not have even consciously remembered. Joan that I spoke about at the very beginning, well, her husband had made all the financial decisions for their entire 42-year marriage. And so for Joan, her brain had associated making financial decisions alone is dangerous. It was uncomfortable because those decisions were always made by her husband. And for many generations of that age demographic, most women didn't make the big financial decisions. And so suddenly, if that client becomes widowed, then their brain is going to associate making big financial decisions as something that they've never done before. It's really uncomfortable. It's painful. And actually, the opposite of being in that pattern and that association is that spending money without permission from somebody else is also painful. And that exact association was what was keeping her in that place of safety, or at least that's what her brain believed. Even though her husband had passed away a few years prior. And so, how do you actually spot when a limiting belief is running the show? Well, let me give you 3 patterns to watch for. Pattern number 1 is knowing what to do, but not being able to do it. This is the most common one. So clients will understand advice. They agree with your advice, perhaps. They might even be really excited about it. But when it comes to actually implementing it, nothing happens. They cancel their meetings. They delay their decisions. They don't spend the money that they have. Or they perhaps need to contemplate and think about their decisions for a long period of time. And what's actually happening is that their brain has associated that action with pain, even though logically it makes perfect sense. The fear isn't rational. It's a stored emotion from experience. And so this is the brain learning and operating from this place of taking this action is dangerous. And until that association changes, then no amount of logic is going to be able to shift it for them. Pattern number 2 is that they keep ending up in the same financial position. Now, you might notice this with other financial patterns. People who pay off debt and run it back up again, save money and then spend it, get a pay rise and their expenses then lifestyle creep to match. We've all seen it, haven't we? Perhaps you even resonate with this for yourself. The client who always seems to end up back in the same financial position, no matter what is happening, no matter if they're making more money, they've had a pay rise, their business is growing, they're still in those same patterns. Why? Well, this goes back to how their mind, their brain has associated these particular financial set points, which is really a level that feels familiar. And anything that feels familiar equals safety, even if it's not what they really want. Because anything that is unfamiliar triggers fear. Their brain is essentially saying, this is who we are, this is what's normal for us. Anything beyond this unknown, and unknown means danger. So they unconsciously sabotage themselves back to what feels familiar. Makes sense, right? Pattern number 3 is a strong emotional reaction to making money decisions. So anxiety about spending, in Joan's example, is completely out of proportion to the amount of money that was being required for her to spend. Spending £3,000 on a cruise when she had £800,000 in the bank, was in good health, was a disproportionate reaction to the amount that she was looking to spend. But in her mind, it didn't matter how much that cruise was going to cost. The fact that she had to make that financial decision for herself meant that that feeling that she was experiencing, which was a lived experience, was real. And we see this the same with shame shame around earning good money. How dare I make all this money when other people are suffering in the world? Guilt about having more than other people. Panic when checking bank balances. And money can trigger a very strong emotional reaction. Now, the emotion itself isn't about what is happening in the here and now. It is an emotion that is being triggered automatically by an association. What are we making it mean about money? And what are we making it mean about what is going on in that moment? So that £50 purchase that might trigger the same response as a £50,000 decision, the brain doesn't know the difference between £50 and £50,000. But what is real for the client is the emotion that they are experiencing. But it belongs to an old experience, something that's happened before. Maybe that's something that's happened to them, maybe something that's happened to somebody that they know, not the actual current situation. Really important to remember that. And so I'd really love for you to just let me know at this point, if you're watching this on video, which of these patterns do you see most often with your clients? Drop it in the comments and I'll come back and reply to you. We can get into some really interesting conversations about what you're observing. Now, I want you to meet Kristen, and she is a financial advisor. And a few years ago, what happened with her own relationship with money was really significant and completely changed how I actually think about this work. Kristen came in wanting to add coaching skills into her financial advisor practice. And what she didn't expect was that learning to recognize these associations, these patterns, would transform her own relationship with money and the relationship that she had with herself. And she realized something quite profound, that the relationship we have with money is really about the relationship that we have with all aspects of ourselves, our sense of worth, our boundaries, our belief in what is possible. And what's remarkable through this work is that Kristen actually stopped drinking because she recognized the pattern. She saw that the drinking, the behavior, was linked to an old belief about not being good enough. And once she created a new belief, one where she could hold compassion for herself and her worthiness, she didn't need this mechanism anymore. And she said, it's completely changed my life. And I don't mean just financially, I mean me as an individual. And today, Kristen still works as a regulated financial advisor, and she coaches professional footballers across the UK on their relationship with money, combining her skills in a way that's transformed her practice. And this is what becomes possible when you understand that money issues aren't actually really about the money. They're about patterns, recognizing those patterns, those associations, and patterns can be changed. So what do you actually do when you spot these patterns? How do you help clients break associations that have been running for many, many years? This is where I developed something called the Money Narratives Clearing Method. And it's a 6-step framework that helps people to identify the limiting belief, understand how they're formed, and most importantly, create new empowering beliefs to replace them. I'm going to walk you through the complete framework in video 3 of this series coming up. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that. And here's what I want you to understand right now about this framework. Change happens when you help someone to do 3 things. Number 1 is to recognize the pattern, to see the limiting belief for what it is. Number 2 is to interrupt that pattern, breaking that automatic association. And 3 is to create a new belief, build a new association that serves them. So the first step is pattern recognition. It's often the most powerful. Because when somebody can see the story, they're no longer controlled by it. Joan couldn't see that her fear of booking this £3,000 cruise had nothing to do with the amount of money. She thought she was being sensible or careful with money. And it wasn't until she actually recognized the pattern through some story investigation where she actually realized that I believe I'm not capable of making decisions alone. And that shifted everything for her. Now, I don't want you to leave this video without something that you can use straight away. So let me give you one really powerful question that helps clients to recognize their patterns. And you might even want to use this question for your own relationship with money too. After all, we're all human. So the question is, what might you be afraid would happen if this problem was solved? So when a client is stuck, when they can't seem to implement your advice, when they keep repeating the same patterns, try asking them, what might you be afraid would happen if this problem was solved, if it was no longer there? And this question does something really interesting. It assumes that there is a reason for the pattern, and therefore it opens up curiosity instead of judgment. Like, what if? What if this problem was solved? What would be possible? How would you feel about saying yes to your friends inviting you on this cruise without the fear? And it opens up a really beautiful curiosity conversation. And it helps them to see the hidden belief. So with Joan, when I asked this question, she went quiet for a long moment. Important to hold that pause. And she said, I think I'm afraid that I would feel completely out of control, like I'm not capable of making these decisions by myself. And there it was. That was the pattern, the limiting belief that her brain had created. I'm not capable. Financial decisions are not safe for me to make alone. And that belief had been running her whole financial life for 42 years. And she'd never seen it clearly until that very moment. Once she could see it, we could work with it. We could ask, is that actually true? What evidence is there that you are capable? Possibility thinking comes in. What would it mean to believe something different? How would it feel? And here's what this is so beautiful about pattern recognition is that once someone sees the old belief so clearly, they often realize that it isn't working for them anymore. Like, of course that doesn't make sense for me now to suddenly put all this pressure upon me to make these decisions alone. Joan had been running a household, managing a family, making hundreds of decisions every single day. She was capable. Her brain just hadn't updated her story when it came to money. And the new belief that she chose was, I am a capable woman who can make good financial decisions. Simple. But it really changed everything for her. And I remember 3 years after that conversation, speaking to her when I went to see her for her annual reviews. And she'd been on like 6 cruises that year. And it was so wonderful to see her enjoying making decisions and enjoying using money in a way that brought her fulfillment in her life and connection with her friends. She wasn't alone anymore. Now, if you want to dive into some more questions like that, questions that really help your clients to recognize their patterns and uncover some of their limiting beliefs, I've put together a free guide with 59 powerful coaching questions that you can use in your practice. They're specifically designed to explore money memories, uncover hidden beliefs, test whether those beliefs are actually true, and help clients connect with what they really want. You can download it for free at themoneypanel.co.uk/coaching questions. I'll put the link in the description below. Even if you've never done any coaching before, these questions will help you have a deeper, more meaningful conversations with your clients starting this week. And I would love to hear from you when you have used those questions in your next meeting. And this is what's possible when you understand that financial blocks aren't really about money at all. They're about patterns of belief. And once you can help somebody recognize these patterns, real change becomes possible. The value of you as a professional in an advisor capacity or an accountant capacity or a coach capacity, that value becomes absolute gold. And in the next video, I'm going to show you exactly how to integrate this kind of work into your existing practice without adding hours to your day or disrupting your compliance requirements. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out. And if you found this helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps other people to find this content. And I will see you in the next video next Monday.